In this video, I'm going to give you a full breakdown and walkthrough of my entire electrical setup for my van. I know that electrical is one of the more confusing topics and something that most people have questions on when they're designing their first van build. So I wanted to give you a kind of a real life scenario on what my van power system is like after 3 years without any major issues. So I'm going to show you exactly what I did, how much power I use on a daily basis on average, and exactly how I wired up this whole system to actually work without any major issues for 3 years. This won't be a full in-depth tutorial or explanation on everything you need to know to build your own van life electrical system. I'll make a totally separate video on that. This one is more just detailing what I did in my van build and what actually works in real life, or what's been working for me for 3 years anyway. So to start it off, let's go over everything that I actually use in my van that requires electricity and what I'm trying to power. Now, I have a lot of power in my van because it's a fully electric build, meaning I don't have any propane or anything for cooking or heating. Everything is electric powered, so all of my cooking, outlets, lighting, obviously, everything is electric. And I also wanted to live pretty comfortably in this van, so it wouldn't be too much different if I was, like a normal person living in a house. So it has pretty much anything that you could need to live in a house, just condensed for a van format. First up being lighting. So let me just show you what the switching looks like for that. So here's all the switching in my van. So you'll see that this is the main one that's on this dimmer switch right here. So I can just slide this up and down to get brighter or less bright. See that. Then we have this one controls the strip lights. So that's these lights up here and over there. And then we can also do under cabinet lighting over here. So then for the toe kick lighting, you can see that when I turn it on, you start to get the colors coming under there. That's pretty much it for what I do for lighting in the van. It's between 1 and 5 amps at a time, depending upon how many lights I have turned on at once. And the reason it's important to know how much power something draws is so you know how big a battery bank to get and how much power you're going to use in a day. I'll show you my calculation in a minute here of how I average how much power I use in a day. But let's move on to cooking now. Now, cooking is going to be one of my biggest power draws since I don't have propane, so I cook with electricity. So I have a 2-burner induction stove and a Ninja Foodie air fryer. Actually, let me pull them out and I'll show you. The air fryer is a little bit annoying to take out because it's in this bench seat with all of my other pots and pans. So I usually use the stovetop instead, but sometimes you need the air fryer instead for other stuff. So these are my 2 cooking appliances that I have in the van with me, and these are pretty much all I need with the 2-burner induction stovetop and then the Ninja Foodie air fryer with a whole bunch of other cooking functions. I can cook pretty much anything I want to or need to in the van. I usually do try to limit my cooking times a little bit though, just because induction power does draw a lot of power. So I don't want to be, cooking for hours and hours at a time and deplete my battery to like 50% or 0 or whatever. And how much power they draw depends upon what level of cooking I'm on. So this one is typically anywhere between 70 amps to 120 amps or so. And this one's usually 100 to 120 amps at a given time. It just depends on what setting and how hot they are. So these are 2 of my biggest power draws by far. And down here in the front part of my van, next to my bench seat here, we have my diesel heater. So I take this van camping in the wintertime a lot of times and go skiing all over the place. So I definitely need to have a diesel heater to keep me warm in the wintertime. And this doesn't pull a whole lot of power. So it may pull like 10 amps for a few seconds on startup, and then it's around 1 amp continuously after that. So if I run it all night long, that'll be 8 amps of depleted battery throughout the night, which is not bad at all. That's really just to power the fan in there that blows the hot air out of here that comes from the diesel heater that's being heated. Sitting like this isn't super comfortable, so I'm gonna get up now. Back to the kitchen, we got my fridge here. So this is a 12-volt DC fridge from Truck Fridge. I think it's 120 or 130 liters big, if I remember right. So it's a pretty big fridge to have in a van. I love having a big fridge. It's so nice being able to store, like a week and a half, 2 weeks worth of food in here if I need to, and it's just super convenient. Since it's DC, it also doesn't use as much power as an AC fridge would, and then I don't also need to turn on my inverter, so that's super nice. So this uses 6 amps when the compressor is on, I think, but that's only when the compressor is running, which is about like a quarter of the time. So that'll be what, like 36 amps or so to run my fridge per day. My math is right, so not too bad. Then I get all of this storage space for food. Pretty good. Then back here in the center of the van, near my kitchen and bathroom area, we have my Max Air fan. So I use this for cooling down the van when it gets too hot, or if I'm cooking, I'll vent the steam through this. Or if I shower, I can, vent all my shower hot air through there as well. And then you can probably see the window in the back over there. So that is a skylight. So when I pop open the skylight and then I run the max air fan, I get a nice cross breeze across the bed. So that runs about 4 amps at the highest and I think 0.2 on the lowest setting. So it just depends on how fast I have this fan running. So this isn't on all the time. This is just kind of on an as needed basis. Let's move on to my electronics cabinet. So this cabinet that I have right here is basically dedicated for electronics and controlling and monitoring things that I have in the van. So I have my internet router in there for Wi-Fi in the van. I have my radio for surround sound, a bunch of switches, water pump and controls and stuff. And it's also where I monitor my electricity and water levels. So if we take a look inside here, you can see a whole rat's nest of wires and stuff back here. We got my internet router back there, so that will draw like a 0.5 amp at all times, and that's on all the time. I do have a Nintendo Switch back there as well that I don't play a whole lot, but it's there when I want to, which is nice for, rainy days and whatnot. I don't remember how much power that draws, but we got my radio here for surround sound in the van that'll come out of those 2 speakers there. And then I also have 2 more speakers in the back of the van as well. And this will draw like 1 to 2 amps when it's running. And then we have my security system, which is around another 1 or 2 amps or so to have my security system in the van with my security camera and entry sensors anywhere in the van. We got my water pump switch for my fresh water pump. And this fresh water pump will run 5 to 6 amps when it's in use, but that's only when it's like actually spinning and running at a time. So that's not continuous. Light switch for inside the shower, and then water heater switch. Water heater is going to be one of the bigger items for sure. So anything that uses heat, that uses up a lot of power. So that runs around 120 amps, I think, for when that's running. So I only try to run that for, 10 to 20 minutes at a time to save battery. And then here is my monitoring system. I have a Cimarine Pico monitoring system. So you can see it has a nice big number telling me how much battery I have at any time. Has the time, which is incorrect at the moment, so I do need to change that. And then it'll tell me how much power I'm drawing at any time as well. You can see right now I'm not losing any power at the moment. I'm getting 6, almost 7 amps from solar if we zoom in there. And then I'm currently using net around 0.1 amps draw. So at this rate, I can go pretty much forever. But once the sun goes down, that changes. And in this controller, you'll see like how many amps I'm drawing over here, what my battery voltage is at any time, how long it'll take to drain or charge the battery, depending upon which direction I am using more power. And then I also have some monitoring for some devices in the van, and then my water levels as well. I got to empty my gray water tank. Good thing I'm checking this now. So these levels tell me how full my freshwater tank is and how full my gray water tank is. And then also on this, you get a thermometer and a barometer as well. So I've been really liking this monitoring system. It's, again, Cimarine Pico. It's been good for me. Not sponsored. I just like it. And there's a lot of stuff in here, so I'll make a dedicated video on exactly how this all functions and works, because that'll be its own video on its own. But yeah, that's all the electronics and controlling in the van. Getting to the end of pretty much everything that I need for power in my van, you can see that it's a lot of stuff, and I do have a lot of similar luxuries that you would have in a house, including TV. So I have this TV. It's just really a computer monitor that takes like 1 to 2 amps to run whenever I'm running it. And then I have a mount over here on the side of the wall that I can just take the TV and put there. So now when I'm cooking, I can have TV there. Or this is also my workstation as well. So this chair will turn around and then this TV flips like that. So I can have a nice 27-inch monitor for when I'm working. Or I also have another one of these mounts hidden in the back cabinets of my van, so I can watch TV from in bed and, just chill out and relax. And with this TV, I can either plug in my computer into it, and so I can just mirror my screen there, or I also have a whole, AV system up there. So I have my Amazon Fire Stick and my network attached storage with a bunch of movies and stuff saved on it. So I can watch that on the screen in either one of those locations. So I have it set up so I can have this one screen in either place and switch between 3 different inputs, and I can get anything that I want to show up on the screen, wherever it is. If you want to know how I set up that system, just leave a comment down below and I'll make a video on that separately. I think that's going to do it. I think that about cover. Oh wait, nope, outlets. So I do have some outlets in here as well. So we have DC and regular outlets that you would see in a house. So anything that, gets plugged into an outlet that you can use in a normal house, I can use in the van here. And then I also have separate DC outlets as well. So those outlets will just draw however much power the device that's plugged into them will using. So if I need to charge my laptop, that's around 2 amps, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I've got outlets like all over the van. We got ones under these light switches over here. We got some over by my office area where I plug in and work. And then I even have 2 sets of outlets in the bed area so that I can charge my phone without needing a 10-foot long cord. I know that's a lot of stuff, but it's pretty much anything that you would need in a house for power I've built into this van here. So it's super convenient and I don't feel like I'm lacking or missing anything. So with all those numbers for power and amperage that I mentioned while I was going through my stuff, I've put those into a spreadsheet. So if you are designing your own power system and you want to see how much does a fridge or how much does a TV take on average to power, you can download that spreadsheet for free. I'll put the link in the description to get that. And then you can kind of get an estimate of how much power you're going to need for your own van system. And that's just super helpful for determining how big of a battery bank and how big your solar panels are. But I'll make a whole other video on how to do that. Okay, so now that you have an idea of everything that I can power and do with electricity in my van, let's head on back to the garage where I'll show you the actual system, how it's set up, how I built it, and how all of this is even possible. Let's take a look at the system that actually powers all the electricity in this van now. I built my electrical system underneath my bed in this garage area, and it's all stacked up against this sidewall. So in order to get there, I need to declutter and take some of this stuff out. So just give me 1 second. I'll take all this stuff out, and then we'll get to the electrical system. I have this piece of wood that covers my electrical system and keeps it safe from these bikes hitting it. But I think we're good to go now. Let's take a look. Welcome to my garage. So we're currently under my bed right now in the garage in the back of my van. So here's my DIY solar electrical power system that I built myself that I've been running for the past 3 years without any major issues or any times running out of battery at an inconvenient time. There has been 1 or 2 times where I have run out of battery because I left the van and took flight to fly back home or something for a week or 2. But that's understandable to run out of battery when I'm not in the sun or driving it anywhere. But as far as other issues, it's been pretty much all good. Hasn't started any fires. So that's really what we want here. So with any off-grid electrical system, we're going to need 3 things. We need a way to store power. We need a way to capture power. And we need a way to distribute that power to be used. So the way that I store power in my van here and what a lot of other camper vans and other off-grid people do is that they have an auxiliary battery bank or a separate battery bank that's separate from the actual van starter battery that people use to drive with. And so my van is the same. So back here behind me is my battery bank. I have 4 100 amp hour lithium ion batteries from Relion, and they've been working great for the past 3 years without any issues. You'll notice that my batteries are stacked up in this tower here. And the main reason for that is so that I have less of a footprint in the back of the van here, so I have more room for storage and getting my bikes back here. And it's okay that they're stored like this. They can be stored in this orientation. I checked. And doing it this way with this tower means that the weight of each battery is distributed through the frame. It is not resting on the battery beneath it and the subsequent batteries below that. Because these batteries can be pretty heavy, so you don't want all that weight just resting on one battery. So now it just distributes through that frame that I built and right into the floor of the van. And these batteries are wired up in parallel, so that means the amperages or the current is going to add up in them. So since I have 4 100 amp hour batteries, that means I have 400 amp hours of batteries to run everything inside of this van. So that's how I store all my power. But how do I capture that energy? Now, in my van, I have 3 different ways that I can capture energy. So I have solar power. So I have a solar panel on the roof of the van that I'll show you in just a second. Then I also have a 12-volt DC to DC charger. So anytime that I'm driving, this is pulling power from my alternator or the starter battery of the van, and it's using that to charge my battery bank. And then I also have a shore power plug. So if I'm at a house or a campground, I can just plug right in, and that's going to charge my battery bank as well. So those are the 3 ways that I get power into the van, and having those redundancies is really great because it means that I don't have to rely on one source of power. Like if I only had solar, then I would be out of luck sometimes because I like to do winter camping and go skiing, and you'll have just a string of non-sunny days in a row. So it's great to be able to just drive and go somewhere, and then that'll charge my battery bank, so I'm not reliant on the sun in the winter. So I would recommend having at least 2 different sources to charge your batteries, but you can get away with one if you know that you're just going to be following the sun. But I knew that I didn't want to just follow the sun and be at the whims of weather. So that's why I have 3 different sources, so I can always know that I'm going to have power in my van. I know this is definitely not a cheap system to build, but my outlook on it was, if I'm going to be spending money on one area of the van, I don't want to skimp on the electrical, because this powers everything in the van and allows me to live this lifestyle and to do everything that I do. So I wanted to make sure that it was going to be something quality that was going to last and work when I needed it. And as of now, after 3 years, I'm glad that I, went for the good quality stuff and that it's been working out great for me. Now, the last component of the 3 things that I said every off-grid power system needs is a way to distribute power. And I do that through my distribution panel right here. So this has all of my AC and DC circuits. So if we take off this cover right here, then you will see that it has my circuits for everything in the van. So fridge, outlets, heater, everything is separated so that if something breaks, I can just pull the fuse and fix it. And then it has my AC and DC loads in this one panel like I said. So I like having them in one panel because they're easy to access and I don't have to worry about having 2 separate panels. I just preferred it that way personally, but you can split them up if you want to. Okay, let's go through some of these components now. So this big blue box behind me is my inverter charger. So this is what I use to charge the van from shore power. So when I plug in, it takes that AC current, it converts it to DC so that it will actually charge my batteries. And then this is also my inverter. So that's what I use to get AC power and plug things in the van for. That would be like normal house outlets that you would plug stuff into. That's how I get that kind of power. I won't do a deep dive into AC and DC power at the moment. I have a different video on that you can check out. But basically anything coming from a battery is going to be DC power, but lots of houses and appliances are designed to use AC power. So if you want to use anything that plugs into an outlet, you'll need an inverter. So that's what this is. I have the Victron MultiPlus 3000 watt inverter. And the reason I went with the big one is because I have induction cooking. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to power my induction cooktop and my air fryer and my electric hot water heater without cutting out on me or shorting or tripping or anything like that. Yeah, and I've been very happy with it. It's kind of a monster. It's huge, but it's been good, so no complaints here. Then over here we have my DC to DC charger. So this comes off of my vehicle starter battery. So anytime that I'm driving the van, this is what charges my battery bank. So it's one of my charge sources. This is the Sterling BB1260. So that means I get 60 amps coming off from my alternator to charging the batteries. And so that means basically if I drive for an hour, then I get 60 amp hours of battery to charge up my battery bank. And then above it, we have my solar charge controller. I have the Victron MPPT 150/35. So that means 150 volts, 35 amps. And what this does is it basically regulates the charging voltage coming from my solar panels to make sure that it's maximum efficiency to be charging my batteries. And this is my solar panel. I have one 400 watt Solaria Power XT 400 solar panel. So this is one of the ways I get power into my van. And what's nice about this panel is it's a commercial grade panel and it's broken up so that way when one part of it is shadowed or covered, or the whole panel is not rendered useless. So if this part of the panel gets covered, unlike some solar panels, then the rest of the panel still works except for this section of cells, which is super nice when you're parking in forest or any place that has trees or clouds or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about, getting one little tree branch in your solar panel and then your entire panel is worthless. So that's why I went with this one. So that's the solar. Now it's pretty bright out here, so let's head back down into the garage. Back down in the garage, just got a couple more things to show you with the system here. So here between my inverter and my battery tower, we have some distribution blocks here. So these basically just act like a bus bar. So it'll be taking all the power from my batteries and different sources and combining them into one location here. So I use distribution blocks instead of a bus bar. You can use either one. I just like these more. Then you can see that every single one of my batteries has its own fuse. So I can take each one of these out. It's a fuse breaker too. So I can just turn it one off if I need to remove a battery or change it out. And that's just important. It makes it better for actually working on the van and doing stuff back here. I got another distribution block. And then this is a shunt that goes to my battery monitor. So this tells me how much power and charge I have at any point in time. So this, if we go back to the Cimarine Pico where it's at 100% battery, that's what this is measuring. So it's just in line with my negatives here. And yeah, that's how it measures that. Then lastly, in this section, we have this smart dongle right here. So what this does is it basically lets me control my inverter from my phone. So I can turn it off and on from my phone, which is super handy. Then moving back over here, we have some more fuses. Over here, it's just always fused on the positive in multiple locations. And then this is more monitoring. So this is my water sensor. So I have lines with a depth gauge going to both of my water tanks. And then that's just more sensors for more things that I'm measuring in the van. And then under here, we have the panel. So let's take a look at the panel. So let's take off this panel cover so we can see it. And then over here, you'll see that we have all of my AC switches or AC breakers, and then my DC fuses all lined up. So everything in the van gets its own breaker or fuse. So we got, all my LED lighting on one. We got undercab. We got toe kick lights. We got LED ceiling strips. We got my fan, outlets, heater, fridge. Everything is on its own breaker or fuse. And that's just to make working on it easier. Then also back here, I just have an outlet and a switch too. So I do have lighting in my garage so I can see in here if I need to work on stuff at night. And then I also just put the outlet in here in case, I need to charge something back here. For wiring, you'll notice that some of these wires are different gauges and different thicknesses, and that has to do with how much current is being drawn in each section. That's going to be a little advanced for this video, but if you check out my other video on van electronics, then I'll go over a section in there. But basically, more amperage means more power. I know a lot of this can be a little bit confusing with all this electrical stuff, so to help you out, I've made a copy of my wiring diagram, so you can just download that from the link in the description, and that shows you exactly how everything in the system is wired and connected, and even the wiring size gauges for everything in here. So I hope that'll be super useful for you, but the main big idea that you can take away with and think of is capture energy, store energy, distribute energy. So you want to have your main central battery bank. So that's where everything gets fed into. And then you have your capturing energy. It's going to be on the outsides of your wiring diagram. So you have your inverter charger getting shore power, you have your solar panels, and you have your DC to DC battery charger. So those things are on the outskirts, and you just have wires connecting those into your battery system. And then from there, you have your battery system going to your distribution panel, and then that gets distributed out to all of your devices and appliances. So that's kind of the easiest way that I've found to think about it. Capture, store, distribute. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you and can act as a gauge for how much power you can expect to use in a big van like this, and how you can get started building your own van life electrical system. Now, if you want even more details and more in-depth tutorials and explanations on everything here, how all this works, so what each component does, how electricity flows, AC, DC, what you need to know, I have a super easy to understand tutorial where I break everything down that you need to know. You can watch that video here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.